There's a compass hanging above an old coffee cart, the kind of compass that doesn't belong there. It's cracked, scratched, but the needle still points north. Most people walk by without noticing. But today that little compass is about to change 6 lives forever. If stories about second chances, quiet acts of kindness, and the kind of love that shows up when no one else does speak to you, you're in the right place. Consider hitting like and subscribe. It helps more than you think, and who knows, maybe this story finds someone who really needs it tonight. Now let me tell you what really happened. It was not the kind of morning that made anyone slow down. Wind pushed against the glass buildings of downtown Briarwood, carrying the smell of rain that never arrived. Cars hissed over wet pavement. Businessmen scrolled their phones without looking up. In the middle of it all stood a man. His coffee cart was older than some of the office workers passing by. The paint had peeled off in strips, one wheel tilted slightly like it had given up years ago but never quite collapsed. A hand-painted sign read, "Cole's Honest Coffee, Hot, Strong, No Nonsense." The man behind it was Ethan Cole. 44 years old, former Marine, single father, the kind of man who spoke only when necessary but noticed everything. There was one thing about his cart that did not belong, a military compass dangling from a nail on the side. The glass was cracked, the metal casing scratched and worn thin, but the needle still pointed north, always north. A customer walked up, mid-30s, AirPods in, barely glanced. Ethan filled a paper cup, black coffee, no small talk. The man tapped his phone card, declined. Ethan did not flinch. He waved it off. "Pay tomorrow," he said. The man blinked, confused, then nodded and disappeared into the rush of bodies. Ethan wiped his hands on a towel, glanced at the sky. No sun. Just that heavy steel-gray light that made everything look tired. He adjusted the compass, checked the tiny screw that held it in place. For some reason, the compass mattered more than the cart itself. A soft metallic clink echoed every time the wind swung it sideways. A woman walked by, pushing a stroller. 2 kids in matching backpacks argued about something. A delivery guy cursed as his dolly hit a crack in the sidewalk. Life moved, and Ethan stood the same spot he had claimed every weekday for the past 4 years. Since the day the shop closed. Since the day things changed. This cart paid the bills, barely. It kept the lights on at home. It helped cover his son's college textbooks. Some days that felt like enough. Other days it did not. As he poured another cup, Ethan caught something unusual in the corner of his eye. 3 little girls, standing alone in front of the Westin Global Tower. Their clothes were mismatched thin jackets against the wind, shoes a size too big. One of them held a piece of cardboard with shaky handwritten letters. "Please help. Our mom is sick. We just need a place to sleep." Ethan frowned. Something about the way they stood, not crying, not begging loudly, just waiting. Waiting for someone to notice. Waiting for someone who would not look away. His hand tightened around the coffee pot. The compass on the cart spun slightly, needle steady. North. Always north. Ethan's jaw set. Whatever this was, it was not something he could ignore. Not today. Not anymore. The Westin Global building stood like a glass mountain. All steel beams and mirrored panels reflecting a sky that never seemed to change. People flowed in and out of the lobby, dark suits, polished shoes, hurried steps. Right there in front of the revolving doors stood the girls, triplets. 6 years old, maybe 7. They were not identical, but close enough that anyone passing by would glance twice. One had curly hair barely held together by a faded purple scrunchie. The second wore a denim jacket with one button missing. The third had sneakers wrapped in duct tape, silver patches where the soles had worn through. In their hands, a cardboard sign. "Please help. Our mom is sick. We just need a place to sleep." They stood perfectly still. No shouting, no chasing people down, just standing, quiet, present. A black SUV pulled up. A driver in uniform stepped out, opened the rear door. Grant Weston, CEO. The kind of man whose name opened doors before he did. Clean cut, tailored suit that probably cost more than Ethan's entire cart. Eyes sharp, expression practiced. Weston stepped onto the sidewalk. His gaze flicked toward the girls for half a second. His jaw tightened. Not annoyance, not pity, something colder. He adjusted his cufflinks, whispered something to the driver, then walked straight toward the entrance. Sophie, the curly-haired one, lifted the sign a little higher. Her hands trembled, but her eyes did not look away. Ella shifted her weight nervously, glanced between Weston and the lobby security guard. Luna just stared, silent, gripping the frayed corner of the cardboard like it was the only thing keeping her anchored to the ground. Weston's eyes met Sophie's for a moment, just a moment. He said nothing, not a word, not a gesture. He stepped around them. The security guard opened the door for him. The glass swallowed him whole. The SUV pulled away. None of the girls chased it. They did not even move. They just stood there. Small figures framed against a wall of mirrored glass, like they didn't belong to the world moving around them. Ethan watched it all from his cart, his hands gripping the edge, knuckles whitening. His breath slowed. People were still walking, still scrolling, still pretending not to see. But he saw. The compass on his cart swung gently in the wind, needles steady. Ethan wiped his hands on his jeans, reached for the cart's latch, locked it shut. He whispered to himself, not a prayer, not a question. Enough. Then he stepped off the curb, boots crunching against the concrete, walking toward the girls. North. Always north. Ethan stepped closer, boots steady on the concrete. The noise of the city faded a little. Not gone, but quieter, like it knew this moment did not belong to it. The girls noticed him right away. Kids always knew which adults were paying attention for real. Sophie was the first to straighten her shoulders. Her chin lifted, but her fingers gripped the cardboard tighter. Ethan stopped just far enough not to scare them. His voice came low, measured, calm. "Are you girls okay?" None of them answered right away. Just the wind answering for them, tugging at their sleeves, their hair. He tried again, softer this time. "Where's your mom?" Sophie opened her mouth, but no sound came out. It was Luna, the smallest one, who pointed without speaking. Her hand moved slowly, like every motion cost energy they did not have. Ethan followed her finger. At first he saw nothing. Just a row of parked cars, SUVs, sedans, a delivery van. Then he noticed it, tucked back behind a line of hedges. A red pickup truck, rust crawling along the fenders. One rear window covered with plastic and duct tape. The kind of truck that should not be parked here. The kind of truck someone might live in. Is she in there? Sophie nodded, her lips pressed tight. Ella gripped her sister's arm. She is sick, Sophie whispered. She tried to stand this morning. She couldn't. Ethan breathed in slow, steady. You girls wait here, he said. No, wait. Come with me. Don't stand out here alone. The three exchanged glances, then shuffled after him without protest. The pickup truck sat silent. No movement inside. The windshield fogged slightly from someone breathing inside barely. Ethan tapped the driver's side window gentle, not wanting to scare whoever was inside. Nothing. He tried the handle. It opened. Inside, the woman slumped against the driver's seat. Pale, cheeks sunken. Her hands trembled even in sleep. Her eyes fluttered open at the sound of the door. She blinked at Ethan. Confusion, fear. It is okay, Ethan said quietly. I am not here to hurt you. Are you Mara? She nodded barely. Her voice was dry. I did not mean for them to. We just needed. Her head dipped forward again, too weak to finish. Ethan glanced at the girls, at the truck, at the city that had already turned its back. No way. Not today. Not on my watch. Come on, he said. Let's get you home. Ethan knelt by the open door of the truck. His hand hovered for a second, then rested gently on Mara's shoulder. Ma'am, hey, stay with me. Can you hear me? Her eyelids fluttered. She forced a nod, but even that looked like it cost her more strength than she had. Her lips cracked open. We were just going to wait just one night, maybe someone. Her words tangled breath, shallow eyes losing focus between waking and passing out. Ethan's jaw tightened. He glanced back at the three little faces peeking from behind the truck's tailgate, their eyes full of something he knew too well. The look of waiting. Waiting for help. Waiting for someone to prove the world still had space for them. Ethan stood. No. One word, said quietly, but final. He opened the passenger door, reached across, unlocked the back. Girls, grab what you can carry. You are coming with me. Sophie blinked. Are you sure? I was never more sure of anything, Ethan said. Ella looked toward her mother, unsure. Is Mom? Ethan turned back to Mara, checked her pulse. It was there, but faint. He glanced toward his coffee cart still sitting across the street, then toward the Weston Global Tower, shining like it existed in a completely different universe. He made a decision, a clean one, sharp. I have a cart to lock up first, he said. Stay close. We are not doing this out here. With practiced speed, he jogged across the street, locked the coffee cart down with a heavy chain, flipped the closed sign. Then he was back at the truck, already calculating. His order was 3 blocks away, too far, not fast enough. Fine. He reached down, slipped one arm under Mara's knees, the other behind her back, stood. Mara startled weakly, her fingers grasped at nothing, her voice barely a whisper. Wait, you do not. Ethan did not flinch. I do. The girls scrambled to follow as Ethan carried their mother like she weighed nothing at all. His boots pounded the sidewalk, heads turned, some stared, none offered to help. He walked like a man who had done this before because in a way he had, not with strangers but with brothers on battlefields. With wounded you did not leave behind, never leave someone behind. His car sat in a metered spot 2 streets over, a battered SUV with more dents than paint. Ethan opened the back. gently laid Mara across the seat, adjusted her head so she could breathe easier. He turned to the girls. "Seat belts, now!" They climbed in fast, one in front, two in back, squeezed beside their mom. Ethan shut the door, climbed behind the wheel, took one breath steady, turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, caught. He checked the rear-view mirror. "You are safe now," he said. None of them answered. But for the first time that day, their hands unclenched from each other. Ethan pulled into traffic, headed home. The apartment was nothing special. 2 rooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that barely fit a table, walls stained from years of cigarette smoke left by tenants before him. Carpet frayed along the edges where furniture had been dragged one too many times. But it was home. Ethan unlocked the door. It creaked the way it always did. The girl stood behind him, silent, holding the only bags they had. Inside, the smell hit first. Motor oil, old leather, something faintly metallic like tools left out in the rain. A wooden shelf sagged under the weight of mechanics' manuals. A jar of screws, an old stereo that hadn't worked in years. A small TV sat crooked on a milk crate. The couch's cushions were sunken, the fabric threadbare. But the room was clean. Clean in the way only someone who had been taught that discipline wasn't optional kept it. The girls stepped in slowly, eyes scanning. No toys, no rugs, no decorations, just functional furniture and heavy silence. Then they noticed it. On the far wall above the narrow doorway to the kitchen hung a compass. Not a decorative one. A real military compass, big, solid brass. The glass was cracked. A scratch ran diagonally across the face, but the needle was perfect. Always pointing north. Ethan dropped his keys in a chipped ceramic bowl by the door, turned to face them. "It is not fancy," he said, "but it is safe." The girls nodded, small, unsure. Sophie's gaze stayed fixed on the compass. Her voice came small. "Why do you have that?" Ethan followed her eyes. For a moment his shoulders softened. "Because sometimes you forget where you are going. And sometimes it helps to be reminded." He didn't say more. Didn't have to. He crossed the room, opened a closet, pulled out 2 folded blankets. A pillow that had seen better days and a spare sleeping bag. "Bathroom's down the hall," he added. "Kitchen's open. Whatever is there you can have." The girls shuffled further inside. Mara, she still hadn't opened her eyes since the ride. Her breath was shallow but steady. Ethan would deal with that next. For now, step 1 was simple. Get them inside. Get the door closed. Make sure for tonight nobody had to sleep in a truck. The kitchen wasn't much. A dented stove. A fridge that hummed too loud when the compressor kicked in. Mismatched cabinets, one door hanging crooked from a missing hinge. But it worked. Ethan filled the kettle with water, set it on the stove. Opened the cupboard. Not much there. A half-empty box of pasta, a jar of peanut butter, a loaf of bread that was still soft, barely. He reached for the small metal tin on the top shelf. Opened it. Inside were tea bags, 3 packs of instant soup, and a few protein bars, emergency stash, meant for the kind of days he hoped would never come. "Guess today counts," he muttered. Mara was still on the couch. Her breathing had steadied. Her face, though pale, seemed less strained. Her hands were folded over her stomach, fingers twitching now and then. like she was holding on to something even in her sleep. The girls sat cross-legged on the floor, huddled together near the coffee table. Watching, waiting, not asking, just present. Ethan set 3 mugs on the table. Instant chicken noodle soup, nothing fancy, just hot, salty, and something warm in the belly. He pulled a pack of crackers from the drawer, split it between the mugs. "Here," he said, "eat." The girls hesitated, looked at each other, then slowly reached for the cups, hands wrapped around them like it was the first real warmth they had felt all day, maybe all week. Sophie sniffed the steam, her shoulders relaxed half an inch. "Is this okay?" she asked. "It is more than okay," Ethan answered. Luna dipped a cracker into the broth. Her fingers were so small her nails chipped. "You live here alone?" she asked. Ethan nodded. "Just me. And sometimes my son when he visits. He is in college now." The word college made them blink, like it was something too far away to imagine. Ella traced a finger along the scratch in the coffee table. "Do you always cook soup for strangers?" "No," Ethan said. "But I guess today is an exception." For a moment there was only the sound of spoons clinking against ceramic. No TV, no phones, just quiet. It wasn't awkward, it wasn't heavy, it was still. Safe. Ethan sat back, hands resting on his knees. Watched them eat. Watched how their bodies slowly unfolded from that tight, guarded shape. Watched how their breathing changed, not like someone running, more like someone realizing for the first time in a long time they weren't going to be chased tonight. Sophie glanced up at the compass on the wall. "Does it always point the same way?" "Yeah," Ethan said softly. "Always north, always." She nodded like that was enough. Like maybe in a world where everything else shifted and cracked, having one thing that stayed steady, maybe that was all you needed. The first thing Mara noticed wasn't the light. It was the absence of cold, for the first time in weeks, maybe months. Her body wasn't shaking from the damp chill of metal truck doors or the sting of night air sneaking through broken windows. Her eyes opened slowly. Thin morning sunlight spilled through dusty blinds, painting long stripes across the worn-out carpet and faded couch fabric beneath her. For a moment, confusion tightened in her chest. Her hands instinctively reached out. She expected to touch the steering wheel, the cracked dashboard, the familiar roughness of duct tape patched over a busted window. But her fingers met something else, a soft fleece blanket, frayed along the edges but warm. She blinked, slowly. The ceiling above her was off-white. The walls had nail holes where pictures might have once hung. A shelf filled with mechanics' manuals. A workbench cluttered with screwdrivers, pliers, and coils of copper wire. This wasn't the truck. Her breath caught, panic flickered for a second. Where were the girls? She sat up too fast, her vision swam. Then she heard it. Laughter. Soft. Muted. The kind that doesn't quite know how to be loud yet. Like something fragile remembering how to exist. She turned her head. There they were. All 3. Sitting cross-legged on the floor near a small coffee table, coloring on scraps of paper with stubby crayons. Their shoes lined neatly by the door, their coats draped over a chair, drying. Safe, all of them. Mara let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding for weeks, maybe longer. Her shoulders dropped, her hands loosened. For the first time in a long, long time, no engine hummed under her feet. No headlights swept through cracked windows. No fear pressed against her ribs, whispering that someone might knock, might ask them to leave again. Just morning, just stillness, just safe. Out back behind the apartment, the small concrete lot doubled as Ethan's workshop. A sagging chain-link fence lined the edges, half covered in vines. The coffee cart stood right in the middle. One wheel tilted like it was drunk. A handle dangled from a frayed bolt. Ethan crouched beside it, socket wrench in hand. He muttered to himself the way people do when they've already had 3 arguments with an inanimate object before breakfast. The girls hovered nearby. At first they watched, silent, careful, like maybe they weren't sure if they were allowed to exist in this part of the world. Then Sophie broke the tension. "What's wrong with it?" she asked. Ethan didn't look up. "The axle's crooked, bearings are shot. This wheel," he tapped it with the wrench, "has opinions." Ella giggled. "Opinions?" "Yeah," Ethan deadpanned. "It thinks going straight is optional." Luna edged closer. Her tiny fingers traced the rim of the spare tire lying nearby. "Can we help?" Ethan sat back, studied them for a second. "Sure," he said. "Grab that rag, wipe the grease off this." Sophie dashed to grab it before Ella could. Luna followed, picking up scattered bolts and lining them in size order without being asked. It became a rhythm. Ethan loosened bolts, Sophie wiped them down. Ella held the flashlight, sometimes in the right direction, sometimes accidentally into Ethan's eyes. Luna quietly sorted tools like it was a puzzle only she could solve. For a while, no one talked much. Just the sound of metal clinking, the occasional grunt of frustration, and, strangely, the soft hum of kids trying to invent a song about fixing wheels. Ethan tightened the last lug nut, gave the wheel a firm shake. Solid. Finally. He stood, wiped his hands on his jeans. Good as new. Well, good as it gets. Sophie grinned. "Does it still make coffee or just opinions now?" Ethan smirked. "Both." The girls laughed. Really laughed. The kind that bubbles up from somewhere deep. The kind you forget how to do when life has been all duct tape and empty gas tanks for too long. For a moment, in that little cracked corner of the world, it felt like everything might actually hold together, even if just for a while. The knock wasn't loud, but it was the kind of knock that didn't go away. Firm, measured, the kind that carried paperwork behind it. Ethan froze mid-sentence. He had been explaining to Sophie how a pressure valve worked when the sound echoed through the apartment. Another knock, 3 steady taps. Mara glanced up from the kitchen table where she was folding the girls' clean clothes. Her hands trembled. Her face drained pale in seconds. Ethan wiped his hands on a towel, moved to the front door. Through the peephole, a woman, mid-50s, crisp navy blazer, clipboard in hand, glasses low on her nose, a face that had seen every excuse in the book and knew exactly how to wait it out. Ethan opened the door halfway. "Morning, sir. Gloria Thompson, Child Protective Services." Her tone was polite, neutral, almost gentle, but underneath steel. Ethan's grip tightened on the doorknob. "What's this about?" "We received a report. 3 minors living in unsafe conditions, allegedly without stable housing. I need to verify their welfare." Mara appeared behind him, voice already shaking. Please, we didn't. Gloria raised a hand, not rude, just firm. Ma'am, this isn't an accusation, it's a wellness check. May I come in? Ethan didn't move right away. His jaw clenched. His eyes flicked toward the girls, now clustered behind the hallway corner, half hiding, half listening. Then he stepped aside. Yeah, come in. Gloria entered like someone who had done this 1,000 times. Her eyes swept the room, noticing everything. The worn sofa, the blankets folded neatly, the kettle still steaming, the compass on the wall. She pulled a pen from her jacket pocket, clicked it once, twice. How long have the children been here? Mara's voice was barely a whisper. Since yesterday. And before that, Mara's hands gripped the back of the chair. In the truck. Gloria nodded, jotted something down. Do you have legal custody of them? Mara blinked. I'm their mother. Biological mother, yes. But current custody is under review. There's an active concern flagged from another county. Ethan stepped in. His voice was steady. They're safe here. They're fed. They're warm. Gloria looked at him, didn't blink. Sir, with all due respect, you are not family. You are not licensed. This, she motioned around the room, this is technically an unauthorized placement. The air thickened. Mara's knees buckled slightly. She grabbed the edge of the table. Please don't take them. Gloria's expression softened, but only a little. No one's taking anyone today, but there will be a hearing. Soon. She handed Mara a card, folded paper attached. Documentation, you'll need it. Then she turned, headed to the door. As she stepped out, she paused, glanced back at Ethan. People mean well, sir, but meaning well isn't always enough. The door clicked shut. Silence, not the good kind. The air inside the apartment felt heavier after the door closed. Ethan stood near the table, his arms crossed tight against his chest like he was bracing for something he already knew was coming. Mara sat, hands buried in her lap, knuckles white, breathing uneven. The girls, they had retreated to the couch, huddled close, whispering but not daring to speak loud enough to be heard. Gloria flipped open her file, laid a stack of papers neatly in front of her. Let's be clear, she began. This is not about judging anyone, but legally this situation cannot continue as it is. Ethan's jaw flexed. They're safe. Here. They've eaten. They've slept. No one's hurt. Gloria nodded, calm, methodical. That's not the question. I can see you've provided food, temporary shelter. But the law requires stability, proof of income, proof of housing suitable for minors, background checks, emergency contacts, medical records, school enrollment. Her pin clicked softly. Right now, none of that is in place. Mara's voice cracked. We just needed a few more days, that's all. Gloria's tone softened slightly, but the steel was still there. I understand. I do. But understand me too. If this were a motel room, it would still be temporary. This apartment, no lease in your name. No legal guardianship agreements. Ethan stepped forward. So what? You're saying what exactly? She met his eyes square. I'm saying unless something changes fast, the court will likely order temporary custody. That means foster care. The words hit like a punch. Mara's shoulders folded inward. The girls, even without hearing the details, could feel the shift in the air. Ethan clenched his fists. That's not happening. Gloria didn't blink. Then I suggest you figure out how to make this situation legal. Quickly. Her eyes flicked between them. For a moment her expression softened. A crack in the professional mask. Look, I've seen a lot. I know when someone's trying to do right. But the system, it doesn't always care about intentions. It cares about paperwork. She stood, gathered the files, straightened her jacket. You've got 72 hours before the hearing notice is issued. After that, she didn't finish the sentence. Didn't have to. Ethan followed her to the door. His voice was low. You ever think sometimes the paperwork is what breaks people? Gloria paused, hand on the doorknob. Every day, she said. Then she stepped out, closed the door, and left the silence behind. Gloria didn't leave right away. She lingered by the doorway, one hand still gripping the file against her chest. Her voice shifted lower, now firmer. Mr. Cole, I need you to hear me clearly. There will be a hearing. That's not a threat, it's a fact. Ethan didn't flinch. His arms stayed crossed, jaw set like stone. No, not happening. Gloria took a breath, measured, professional. This isn't optional. The report is already filed. Intake started the minute I stepped onto your porch. A case number. A court date. You cannot just fix this with goodwill. Mara sank into the chair behind her head in her hands. Her voice barely made it above a whisper. They can't take them. Not again. Gloria softened a shade. Mara, no one's taking them today. But this is moving forward fast. Ethan stepped forward. His presence filled the space, not loud, not aggressive, but solid, like a wall you didn't argue with. You're telling me because they needed a place to breathe for one damn night, you're gonna tear them apart? Gloria's eyes narrowed but stayed steady. I'm telling you, the law moves whether we agree with it or not. I don't write the rules, I enforce them. Ethan's fists clenched. His knuckles went white. So what's the point, huh? Let kids freeze in a truck. Let their mother collapse behind a steering wheel, just so the paperwork lines up neat and pretty. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried, heavy, measured. There's a line, you don't cross it, not with me. For a split second, something flickered behind Gloria's eyes. Guilt, maybe regret. Maybe recognition that this was one of those moments the manual didn't cover. She exhaled slower now. I didn't come here to fight you, but this is real. 3 minors, no legal housing, no income, no guardianship. I can't pretend I didn't see that. Ethan's voice dropped. Then look again. Gloria blinked. I said look again. Look at them. Look at her. Look at this place. This isn't perfect. Hell, it's barely enough, but it's safe, it's dry, it's warm. He pointed toward the girls, curled up on the couch, listening, pretending they weren't. And it's a whole lot better than the back seat of a truck. Silence hung, thick, dense. Gloria closed the file, clicked the pen. 72 hours, be ready. She stepped out. This time no lecture, no warning. Just the soft, heavy sound of boots on wood, and the door closing behind her. Night came quiet, not the kind of quiet that feels safe. The kind that feels heavy. A silence that presses into your ribs, makes you hear things you've tried not to. The girls were asleep, curled together like puppies in a borrowed blanket. Mara lay on the couch, still, pale, but breathing easier. Ethan stood by the window, arms crossed, staring out, watching the streetlights flicker against the cracked sidewalk. Then his eyes shifted to the compass, hanging from the nail above the kitchen door. Its brass edges dull from years. The glass scratched and fogged. But the needle had never lied. Always north, always. His mind drifted, uninvited, a memory, clear, sharp, unfaded by time. He was 10, lost, somewhere deep in the Pine Hollow woods behind his grandfather's old cabin. The sun had dipped behind the trees faster than he expected. The path disappeared. Panic flooded his chest. His breathing went shallow. His hands shook. Back then, nobody came looking right away. Nobody noticed fast enough. Except he reached into his jacket pocket. Fingers brushed something cold. Metal. His grandfather's compass. Heavy in his small hands. North, the old man had said, pressing it into his palm. North always gets you out. No matter how lost you are, you remember that. And he had. That night, Ethan walked north. One terrified step at a time. No trail, no map. Just trust. It took hours, but it brought him home. Not because north was magic, but because believing something could point you the right way, sometimes that was enough. Ethan's jaw tightened. His eyes burned but didn't break. That compass had saved him before. Not just in the woods, not just in Afghanistan, not just in every dark place life had thrown him. It had saved him from forgetting that forward was always an option. He reached up now, took it off the nail, ran his thumb over the cracked glass, watched the needle swing pause steady. North. Outside, the wind pushed against the windows. Inside, Ethan stood still, not lost, not yet. Morning arrived slower than usual. Gray light seeped through the blinds, carrying the kind of chill that made you wish for 5 more minutes under any blanket you could find. Ethan sat at the kitchen table, a notepad open, pen in hand, tapping, thinking. Mara sat across from him, her hands wrapped around a chipped coffee mug, not because it held anything warm, but because holding anything made the wait a little easier. "We have 72 hours, Ethan said. "Less now." Mara nodded, eyes hollow but determined. "What do we even need? Where do we start?" Ethan flipped the pen in his fingers. "Paperwork. Proof you're stable. References, income, a lease." Her laugh came brittle. "Yeah, sure. I'll just grab all that from the magic drawer I don't have." Ethan didn't smile. "No, we figure it out one thing at a time." A knock hit the door, lighter than Gloria's, faster, almost impatient. Ethan stood, peeked through the peephole, then opened it. Agnes, late 70s. Red coat, wool scarf wrapped twice around her neck. The kind of woman whose cane wasn't for walking, it was for smacking anyone who gave her attitude. Ethan blinked. Agnes, she didn't wait. Marched right past him into the apartment like she owned it. I heard she waved her cane vaguely at the air about the girls, about all this. Mara tensed. Shoulders stiff, eyes wary. Agnes didn't miss it. She turned, softened. "Honey, I'm not here to judge. I'm here because Ethan's the kind of fool who never asks for help until the house is on fire." Ethan sighed but didn't argue. Agnes set her purse down. "First question. Are the girls enrolled in school?" Mara shook her head. "No, we've been moving a lot." Agnes nodded, opened her purse, pulled out a small notebook. "Then first we call my friend at the district office. Second, we get you a letter of character from me, from Pastor Jim, from whoever still remembers Ethan here hasn't murdered anyone yet." Ethan snorted. Agnes kept going. "Third, I'll talk to the landlord. He's still mad I beat him at poker in '98, but he owes me a favor." Maybe he can draw up something that looks like a lease. Mara's lip trembled. Why are you doing this? Agnes smiled, pulled a chair, sat. Because once a long time ago someone did it for me. She reached over, placed a wrinkled, steady hand on Mara's. Nobody, and I mean nobody, builds a life alone. Ethan leaned back, folded his arms. Told you she's scarier than she looks. For the first time in days, the air felt lighter. Not fixed, not yet, but maybe possible. The courtroom wasn't big. No marble columns, no grand chandeliers, just old wood, faded carpet. Benches that creaked when anyone shifted their weight. Ethan sat on one side of the table, Mara beside him. Her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles looked bloodless. On the bench behind them, the girls sat shoulder to shoulder, quiet, watching. At the front, behind a desk cluttered with manila folders and a dusty nameplate, sat Judge Eliza Porter. Late 60s, sharp-eyed. The kind of presence that didn't need to raise her voice to hold a room. She flipped open a file, adjusted her glasses. Case number 547B, Martin versus State. Custody review. Let's begin. Gloria rose, straightened her blazer. Your Honor, the Department of Child Services was notified of 3 minors residing without stable housing. Initial contact was made 72 hours ago. At that time, the minors were found in an unsanctioned placement. This residence, without legal guardianship in place. She paused, checked her notes. The biological mother, Miss Mara Martin, does not currently possess valid housing under her name. No formal employment, no health coverage for the minors. Prior reports from Franklin County suggest a pattern of transient living conditions. Mara flinched. Her grip on Ethan's sleeve tightened. Gloria continued. Mr. Ethan Cole, while not a biological relative, has provided shelter and basic care for the minors. However, he holds no legal custodial rights. His background check presents no disqualifying factors, but the home does not meet state certification for foster placement. Judge Porter steepled her fingers, her gaze sharp, unreadable. Thank you, Ms. Thompson. She looked down at the papers again. To summarize, we have 3 minors, no formal housing, no employment-based income, no guardianship paperwork. Gloria nodded. Correct, Your Honor. The judge's eyes shifted toward Mara and Ethan. Ms. Martin, Mr. Cole, I need to ask, are you aware of how serious this is? Ethan straightened in his seat. We are. Mara's voice cracked but held. Yes, ma'am. Judge Porter tapped her pen slowly. This isn't about intentions, it's about capacity. The court's responsibility is to the welfare of the children. Period. She leaned back slightly, studied them both. Now, before we proceed further, I want to hear what exactly you plan to offer these girls. The room held its breath. Even the air stopped moving. The silence was thick, heavy, almost brittle. Ethan stood, slowly, not rushed, not forced, just steady. He adjusted the sleeves of his jacket, cleared his throat once. Your Honor, may I speak? Judge Porter nodded. Go ahead, Mr. Cole. Ethan let out a slow breath. His eyes drifted, not to the judge, but to the girls behind him, to Mara beside him, then back down to his own hands. You asked what we can offer them. He paused. The room waited. I'm not gonna stand here and give you a checklist of things I don't have. Because yeah, if this is about money, about square footage, about perfect paperwork, then no. I don't check every box. Mara's eyes glistened. Her hand trembled but stayed still. But Ethan continued, if it's about something else. Something that lasts longer than a lease or a paycheck. Then maybe I've got something worth more. His fingers reached into his jacket pocket. Slowly, deliberately. He pulled out the old brass compass, held it up. I've carried this since I was 10. The judge tilted her head, curious. Ethan turned the compass over in his palm. When I was a kid, I got lost. Bad. Deep in the woods behind my grandfather's cabin. Nobody knew. Nobody was looking. His voice softened. But my grandfather had given me this. Told me north never lies. Doesn't matter how lost you feel, north's still north. He glanced toward the girls. That compass brought me home. Brought me out of a place where everything felt too big, too loud, too much. He swallowed, jaw tightening. And life has a way of doing that, doesn't it? Losing you, breaking you, making you think there's no way forward. His gaze shifted, right at Mara now. But sometimes all it takes is one thing that doesn't move, doesn't change. Something that says keep walking, keep believing. You're not lost. The judge leaned forward, elbows on the bench, silent. Ethan inhaled. These girls, they don't need perfect, they don't need polished. They need north. Someone that stays. He turned fully toward Mara. His voice softened, not weaker, but deeper. Mara, I know we didn't plan for any of this. I know this mess wasn't supposed to happen like this, but his fingers tightened around the compass. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And if you'll have me, if you believe we can do this, then I want to build something that holds. For them. For you. Mara's hand flew to her mouth. A sob caught but didn't break free. Ethan looked back at the judge. We may not have the right forms or the right start, but we've got the right direction. He held up the compass one last time. And I promise you, Your Honor, I won't let them get lost. Not ever again. Silence. The kind of silence that doesn't crush. The kind that holds. Judge Porter didn't speak right away. She sat back, hands folded, eyes scanning the file in front of her. Then Ethan, then Mara. Then the three small faces peeking nervously from the bench behind them. Her fingers tapped once against the wooden gavel. Not loud, not a threat, just thinking. She exhaled slowly. Mr. Cole, Ms. Martin, you've made this more difficult than you realize. Mara's hands trembled in her lap. Ethan stood tall, but even his chest tightened. The judge closed the folder. This court doesn't ignore the law. Housing, income, paperwork, stability, they matter. She paused. Let the weight of that hang. But her voice softened just slightly. The law also allows discretion. When the welfare of the children is best served, sometimes common sense gets to sit beside the statute book. Mara's breath hitched. Ethan stayed still, but his hands tightened against his thighs. Judge Porter glanced toward the girls. These children, despite everything, are healthy. They're safe. They're fed. And they are clearly surrounded by adults who are willing to fight like hell for them. She leaned forward, elbows on the bench. Therefore, this court is granting provisional guardianship to Mr. Ethan Cole alongside biological custody maintained by Ms. Mara Martin. Mara gasped. Her hands flew to her mouth. Tears pooled instantly. The judge continued. This arrangement stands pending a full home evaluation within 60 days, and pending enrollment of the minors in local schooling. She glanced at Gloria. Ms. Thompson, your office will conduct follow-up visits, but unless new concerns arise, this family stays together. The girls burst into quiet, shaky laughter. Sophie grabbed Luna's hand. Ella wiped her eyes with her sleeve. Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His shoulders dropped. Judge Porter softened just for a moment. Mr. Cole, you said North never lies. Well, neither does this. She raised the gavel. Case status family maintain. The gavel struck, firm, final. Mara let out a sob that was half laughter, half disbelief. Ethan reached for her hand, squeezed it, didn't let go. Behind them, 3 small voices whispered in unison. We're not leaving. No, Ethan whispered back. Nobody's leaving. Not today, not ever. The morning sun hit different this time. It wasn't brighter, not warmer, just steadier. Out front, the sidewalk buzzed with quiet chaos. Hammers, ladders, the scrape of paint rollers. Half the neighborhood had shown up. Agnes barked orders like a general. 2 teenagers from the hardware store hauled fresh lumber. Pastor Jim hammered new railings onto the porch. Someone else patched the roof without even asking. Sophie stood by the front steps, holding a tray of lemonade like it was her official job. Ella handed out paper cups. Luna sat cross-legged on the grass, teaching the neighborhood cat how to wear a crown made of weeds. The cat, unimpressed, tolerated it anyway. Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead, stepped back, looked at the new siding going up. For the first time in a long time, the place didn't look tired, didn't look temporary, didn't look halfway to falling apart. Mara came out of the doorway carrying a small wooden plaque. Her hands trembled, not from nerves, but because of what it meant. She held it out to Ethan. Ready? Ethan nodded, took the drill. Together they mounted it, right beneath the compass. The brass compass, freshly cleaned glass, still cracked but perfect in every way that mattered. The needle pointed north, steady, unmoving. The plaque beneath it read, "This is home, wherever north leads." Ethan stepped back, folded his arms, looked at it, then looked at Mara. Perfect, he said softly. She smiled, bit her lip, nodded. Behind them, Agnes tapped her cane against the porch. Told ya. House just needed a little stubbornness and a lot of elbow grease. Pastor Jim chuckled. And maybe a miracle or 2. Ethan shook his head. Nah, just good people. The sound of nails being driven. Paint slapping wood, laughter. Not loud. Not the big kind. The kind that sneaks up, warms your ribs, makes you forget what it felt like to be waiting for the next bad thing. Inside on the windowsill, the sunlight caught the compass just right. The needle glinted, steady, north, always north. Out front, the porch light flicked on. Even though it was daytime, nobody said anything about it. Nobody needed to. Some things you just leave on. The house was quiet, but not the lonely kind of quiet anymore. It was the kind of quiet filled with the soft clink of dishes being put away, laughter drifting from the living room, the hum of life settling into a place that no longer felt temporary. At the kitchen table, Sophie sorted crayons into an old coffee tin. Ella balanced on a chair, taping a crooked drawing of a tree onto the fridge. Luna sat cross-legged, explaining to the cat why spoons and forks weren't the same thing. The cat, as usual, didn't care. Mara stood at the stove, stirring a pot of something that smelled like garlic and warmth. Ethan leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching. Just watching. No chaos, no paperwork, no waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just this. A home, then a knock. Not loud, not urgent, but familiar. The kind of knock that once belonged to a man hauling 3 sleeping kids from the back of a broken truck. Ethan straightened. Mara glanced over. Their eyes met, both knew. He wiped his hands on a towel, moved to the door, opened it. A young man stood there, early 20s. Backpack slung over one shoulder, shoes worn thin. Jacket zipped up tight, but not tight enough to hide the way his hands shook. His voice cracked. "Sir, I don't know if I'm at the right place. Someone down at the gas station said maybe you help people." Ethan didn't answer right away. He looked past the kid, out toward the road, toward the dark, the cold, then back to the light spilling from the porch lamp. The compass above the door caught his eye. North. Still pointing. Still steady. Ethan stepped aside. "Come in," he said. The kid blinked, as if he wasn't sure he heard right. "Seriously, come in. You look like you could use something warm." The kid stepped in, shoulders sagging. Not from defeat, from relief. Inside, the girls didn't even blink. They just shuffled their drawings to make space. Mara reached for an extra bowl. The cat looked up, sighed, and made room. Because in this house, the rule was simple. The light stays on. Always. The porch light glows softly. The compass above the door still points north, steady, unchanged. Inside, laughter drifts from the kitchen. The smell of soup crayons scattered on the table and one more chair pulled up. For someone new. In this house, the rule is simple. The light stays on, always. And maybe that's the real story here. No matter how lost you are sometimes, all it takes is one person, one open door, and one tiny reminder that you're not meant to be lost forever. If this story brought you even a little warmth, consider hitting like, maybe subscribe, or simply share it with someone who could use a little light today. Because in the end, the world could always use one more porch light left on.